Okay. So summer of 2011 we had a very hot summer. And when I would come home after work, my garage faces west, so it would be very warm. And one of these days, I'm going to get one of those turbine fans, but I haven't done that yet. So I'd come home and I'd leave the garage door about a foot open, just to cool off the garage. And that worked. It would cool off the garage. The only trouble is I left it open overnight several times. And me being an engineer, I said, I can solve that. And one of my sons had told me about Arduinos. So I started looking into them. For those of you that don't know, Arduino is this open source hardware and software ecosystem started by a professor and some of his students in Italy. And originally they had an 8-bit microcontroller, MCU. They now have ARM-based Arduinos. And Intel actually is what they have, the Galileo, which is an Intel-based Arduino. The nice thing about it, it has 14 GPIO lines. Some of them, depending on the model, have the pulse width modulation support. They have 6 analog, and actually these are just input lines, they're not output lines. And they have SPI and I2C interfaces. So originally I built a little, what I call a garage controller, using an Arduino Pro Mini, which is, I should have put a picture there, but it's not for the wider, it's only like an inch wide, and it fits on a breadboard easily. I use a relay, I connect it in parallel. Everybody has a button on, usually by the door going into your house that you push to open and close the garage door. And I bought a real-time clock chip for it and hooked it up. And I set it up so at 9 p.m. If the door was open, it would close it. When I started, I put just a single sensor to see if it was open. Except as I was putting it together and climbing up on the ladder, to hook up everything to the garage door opener, I was thinking, what if at 8:59 I get in the car and I start backing up, and this thing detects that the door is open, so it starts shutting the door. So no, I need a second sensor. So I put in a second sensor so I detect whether the garage door is fully open. So if the garage door is fully open, I figured, someone's in the garage. They did that on purpose, so the controller is not going to shut the garage door automatically. And everything worked fine that summer. Over winter, I said, well, why waste a few milliamps of electricity, so I unplugged it. And the next summer, I plugged it in, and the time was way off. These real-time clock chips that you can buy, they're, I think, no more than $10, $15. So they're not really that accurate. And the only way I had to set the clock to the correct time was to either take everything down or take a laptop, climb a ladder, hook up the USB, and set the time. And I didn't want that. In the meantime, I had I was working at Qualcomm, and there's a mailing list for home automation. And someone had mentioned this unit called Vera from a company called Mikasa Verde, which is now called Vera Control Limited. And I found a model that they no longer make. They called it the Vera 2, and it was $100 on eBay. It was a refurbished unit, so I got that and I hooked it up. And it offers both a web interface or a phone app. And some third parties have developed apps that talk to this Vera. Now you can get them on Amazon. They have what they call the Vera Lite, the Vera 3, and the only difference is how many devices they support. Oh, they have a new one called the Vera Edge, which I haven't looked into. And again, because I had this issue with the time, I said, well, my Vera box is going to be plugged in all the time. It has NTP, so it has the correct time all the time. So why don't I let it worry about the time? The nice thing about the Vera is that you can add your own devices. And lots of people have done that. Nest thermostat, a lot of the lights. I bought Home Depot had some LED lights that had a little gateway that you could talk to, so I've hooked that up. The Vera uses a combination of universal plug and play and the scripting language called Lua. So you write this Lua code, you embed it in this XML file, then you upload some files to the Vera, and you tell it to restart, and it finds this new device, and now you can talk to it, to whatever you want. They support Z-Wave, USB, Ethernet, and Wi-Fi. Although I didn't want another Wi-Fi access point in my house, so I have the Wi-Fi turned off. And for some strange reason, Wi-Fi shields for Arduinos are very expensive. They start at around 40. Well, back then, the cheapest one I had found was $50, and you can pay $100 for a Wi-Fi shield. Doesn't make sense to me. Although in the last few months, there's a series of boards built around this called ESP8266. And what's funny is someone's already enhanced the Arduino IDE so you can program this little USB Wi-Fi dongle. And it has, I think, 2 GPIO lines, so you can even use that standalone. But back when I built this, that wasn't an option. Radio Shack was selling an Ethernet shield for $20. So for me, that was an easy decision. As it happened, the previous owners of my house had run Ethernet wire all to the garage, and they had a rack, and I had to buy my own switch, but it was.
What are these shields? Are these like encryption, or are these?
No, they provide additional functionality. I should have brought. I was going to do that.
Really
I forgot.
Yeah, shield's a daughter card that you plug into an
Right.
Arduino.
And I can show some pictures later. And then I bought a 4-channel relay shield because it was only a few dollars more. And I figured, well, if I have this in my garage, why not hook up my irrigation to it? I don't know how many of you have your irrigation controller in the garage and how hard it is to turn one zone on just for a few minutes. You have to step through, select. They give all these options, and it's really, really hard. Or inconvenient. So the code running on the Arduino is actually fairly simple. I found a Telnet example and I just modified it. So I'm sending just a few commands. G question mark tells me whether the garage door is fully closed, fully open, or partially open. GB means push the button. And then for the relays, so I had 3 extra relays. R for relay N012 and V 1 or 0 to turn it off or on. The fun part that actually took the longest was trying to develop this plugin software on the Vera. They have very poor documentation, although in the last 3 years it's gotten a little bit better and there's more examples that you can look at. There is no debugging capability. They do have a log that you can look at. So from Lua you can say log and print information. And then I had to learn Lua, which I'm more of a C programmer. Lua is sort of like JavaScript, where a variable doesn't have a type. So I ran into some bugs where I thought I was passing a string, but I needed an integer or vice versa. I forget exactly. I published how I built this garage controller on Instructables. I don't know how many of you have gone on that site, but it's a really good site to learn just about anything, from making soap to how to carve a pumpkin, to making solar generators, all sorts of stuff. And as of last week, this had over 40,000 views and 76 people had favorited it. I found it surprisingly, because I tried to do a good job, but there's only like 3 or 4 comments on it. And if anybody wants a PDF of this, just let me know. If you're not a member of Instructables, you have to go through, view all the ads, and they only give you 1 step at a time. When you add an Instructable, you create steps. So here's a couple of pictures. So I put it all in a case. Here's the Arduino, and it's hard to see here on this wall, but here's the Ethernet shield. So the Ethernet shield just pops on top. This board here, well, here's the Ethernet shield and the relays. This board here, I'm using, since I'm running my irrigation off of this, this is a fuse for the 24-volt transformer that drives the solenoids of your irrigation. And then I have 2 of these switches. This is the switch for the fully open. And here's my garage door, the opener, sorry. Okay, so let's see if this will work here.
Is that a contact switch?
Yes, it's a contact switch. Actually, let's see if this will work here. So I don't know. Can we darken the room so we can see this? So this is a live shot in my garage right now. Let me see.
Who's that guy carrying the boxes?
Yeah.
looks like your garage is already closed.
Yes.
So are you going to open it?
Right.
Okay. The button you can push can open it or close
Refreshing.
Oh, there we go.
it.
Of course, like I said, it's facing west, so I think
Lose
the
the
camera
camera
will
reading.
adjust here.
Does the Vera also have the camera on it? Or is
Yes,
that
the camera is hooked up to the Vera. There.
Your neighbors will be freaked out.
Yeah, and I actually flash one of the lights in the house to let my wife know that I've come home or the garage door is open. And from here, you can get the web interface, but I forgot to connect the Wi-Fi here. So the Vera allows you to define what they call scenes. So basically, I define a scene that I moved up the time at 8:30. If the door's open, it closes it. And I have another scene to control my irrigation, and I have actually it's easier here. The Android app, which is a third party, is actually this is my thermostat, so I can turn it off or on and set the temperature. So instead of a programmable thermostat, I do the programming on the Vera interface. I happened to be at Fry's and they had a Z-Wave thermostat for $14. And you can, on the thermostat itself, you can turn it off and on and set the temperature, but that's about it. So I use the Vera to set up these scenes to do that. So if you want to be able to, control your garage door, Chamberlain and Liftmaster, I forget who makes who. They also make, I think, the Sears, has a product they call MyQ that you can control. I don't know if you can set it so that at 8:30 it shuts the door automatically, but you can from your phone open and close it. And it doesn't work with all the garage door openers. Mine, I think, I can adapt it to. And again, if you look on Instructables or on the internet, a lot of people are doing this. I'm not unique in that sense. Now, what I want to do is the next generation, or what I call my garage control center. I'm building it on top of a Raspberry Pi. One has built-in Ethernet. If you want Wi-Fi, you can buy a $10 Wi-Fi dongle. Software's wider selection for the software. And right now, my Arduino basically has to work with a home automation gateway. If you don't have one, you can't control it without punching a hole in your firewall at your house. I want to sort of build a standalone. Oh, I forgot to add here, on the Raspberry Pi, you can connect the camera directly to the Raspberry Pi. So I plan to do that, or offer it as an option. And then I want to be able to update the software if there's anything goes wrong. If you read this FTC report, software upgradability is going to be very important. They're encouraging any device that is at the home to be able to be remotely upgradable. Oh, I put here, yeah, supports a video camera. And that's it. Questions?
I'm really interested in the irrigation because the sprinkler because I'm looking to replace what I have.
Right.
Are you tapping into your existing timer, or is it a complete replacement for?
Complete
So you just
replacement.
wire directly to the solenoid.
Right. If you're just interested in the irrigation,
I'm interested in both.
right. But there's a project called Open Sprinkler that's Arduino based. Although they now have a board, basically the relay board, or they might use solid state relays instead of the mechanical relays. They have an option to plug into a Raspberry Pi also.
So what are you currently using for the timer? Because you said you had issues with your original clock.
Right. So when I hooked it up to the Vera, the home automation gateway, there's no real-time clock on it right now. So all the timing is done by the Vera, by these scenes, what they call scenes.
There's as an alternative topic, if you want to view it, doing the same sort of thing. There's a guy in Melbourne. His website is freetronics.com, and he supports an automated house called superhouse.tv. And he is also a board builder, and he's combined an Arduino Ethernet, an SD card, and the little down converter DC supply if you want to do power over Ethernet. So basically at the end of a Cat5 you have a whole computer system that talks to the internet all built for you. So, but the reason this is a little bit more scaled up is because he uses a switch, regular Cisco switch, and he uses power over Ethernet to run the Arduino and downline.
Right.
But he's got everything in his house hooked up, all of his light switches, lights, everything. But it is fun to look at to see where you can go with this and go absolutely nuts with it. He built it into his house as he was building the house, so
yeah, if you do that,
put all those Cat5 cables.
Well, yeah. So this is one of the lamps here, so I can turn these off and on. Now the lamps are controlled using Z-Wave. So Z-Wave is a wireless protocol, that was designed for home automation. It's now like Balkan has what they call the Wemo, that you can buy I don't know if you can buy the switch. I have one switch, and then I have a little plug module brick that I plug a lamp into, and that's what the Wemo has. Talking about power over Ethernet, based on my experience here, while I was at Qualcomm, I submitted an idea, and I was able to prototype it. Now that I'm no longer there, I don't know what's going to happen with the idea, but there's sort of the flip side of that is called power line communications. So I built a prototype board that has power line and an Arduino. I actually use a Due, just because Dues are not that much more than the Unos. And what this would allow you to do is you just plug in AC, and now you can talk to the Arduino using IP.
You just use an RF connection to the power line, tap it off at the.
Well, there's a standard called home plug, and usually you can go to Fry's, order them on Amazon. They sell you need at least 2 of these devices. but usually they sell them if you have poor Wi-Fi reception in one of your rooms in your house, then you use this power line. And again, it just uses the wiring in your house. It used to be fairly slow, but they're like 500 megabits, and now they just came out with a 1 gigabit version. More questions?
Are you going to sell anything?
Well, yeah, with this Raspberry Pi version, although that's subject to change, the platform. But yeah, I plan to. I'd like to do a Kickstarter, but money is running out, so I need a job soon.
Oh,
On the irrigation thing, is it not only turn sprinklers on and off, but how about track the amount of water delivered
Yeah, I'm not
and keeping a
tracking
log
that. Right,
and that type of thing?
right. That would be easy to do. The one thing I wanted to do was put moisture sensors and then only turn on the water. Now I have a drip system, so it's not the regular irrigation. I just change the heads and put drip systems. And I actually have an artificial turf in my front lawn. But one of the plugins, and I've just been too lazy to do it, for the Vera is it connects to underground weather, I forget. And so you can use that to see if it's raining and then not water if it's raining.
But if you use